Hi, Becca C. Smith here, and welcome to another episode of Forgotten Female Fiction. And today we are highlighting Idella Purnell Stone.
Every writer has a story to tell. But what happens to it years from now when they're gone? History tells us only of the famous, but what about those that have been buried in time? I want their stories to be heard again, and to know that they will always be remembered. Forgotten Female Fiction.
I'm going to start this out with a quote because I found this quote that she said and it just made me love her. It made me feel like we would be writing buddies and that we would go to Starbucks and just write, because finding out more about her, she was such a prolific writer. She just loved to write. She loved to tell stories. So this is a quote from Science Fiction and Fantasy Literature Volume 2. I have had a very interesting life, and as I have had very long-lived parents, feel that I'm good for 15 or 20 more years, which I hope to cram with books. Just the way she says cram with books, it gave my heart, it sang. I want to get as many books and writing and stories as I can. Every ounce of life I am just going to squeeze. And it just seems like from everything that I found out about her that that's how she lived her life, not just with books, but with life. She lived an amazing life. Now, it's shocking to me that we don't know her as much as I think we should. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people that know who she is, but I didn't, and I was just looking through my list on the science fiction encyclopedia, and I found her name and it stood out to me. I just liked it. First of all, I've always loved the last name Stone, but Idella Purnell Stone, I don't know, it just sounded awesome. You know how that is when names just stand out to you. I did a preliminary research online and I found, her Wikipedia page, which was like this much, a paragraph, just the basics. And then I found a couple other sites where, again, it was the same sort of repeato of the Wikipedia. And I was kind of feeling a little bit lost. I did find a couple of things that were interesting about her from the Wikipedia, like she wrote the novelization of Bambi. And I was like, whoa, that's huge. That's a huge career success. You don't not just anybody gets to write a novelization of one of the most enormous animations of all time by one of the most enormous companies of all time. And then reading, like, she'd published over 10 novels, and then she had also co-written a bunch of novels with her first husband, and then she had edited all of these sci-fi anthologies later in her life. Wow. I mean, she had done so much. Why don't we know about her? That right off the bat was kind of crazy. I just wanted to get a picture. I researched images. Okay, let me see if I can get a picture of her. And I couldn't find any picture of her. And I found one that I was like, ooh, is this her? I wasn't even sure, but it looked like the right time period because Idella, just quick bio, Idella Purnell Stone was born April 1st, 1901, and she was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. Her dad was an American dentist, and he married her mother after he had moved to Mexico. And she's actually named after her mom. She's the oldest of three, and she ended up having 3 children of her own with her second husband, Remington Stone. She actually had 2 children with Remington Stone, and then they adopted his niece. So that's why I said 3 children. With her first husband, she did have a baby, but the baby died quickly after childbirth. That alone must have been so difficult to live through. But looking at her picture, going back to that, I found this site. It wasn't her, but I found this site, lakechapalaartists.com, and she was on it. The whole bio. Whoa, it was this whole long article about her life. And then when I scrolled down to the bottom, I was just curious and reading the comments, and apparently her daughter commented on the article saying how accurate everything was. So that was a seal of approval for me. Obviously, since it was the LakeChapalaArtist.com, it had a lot to do with Lake Chapala and people that came to visit her. But she actually went to the University of California, Berkeley, where she studied poetry. She was the youngest in her class, and her teacher was the famous American poet Whitter Binner. In the article, it was talking about how he came down with other famous poets, and it just sounded like Lake Chapala in Mexico was just like this amazing mecca of artists and writing and poetry and all these amazing things. So she was a part of that, and she actually, when she was in college, she decided she wanted to start her own poetry magazine, because she was actually the editor for the Occident, which was the university's literary magazine. So she started her own. It was called Palms. She published her first issue in 1923, and it ran all the way until 1930. And it actually became a huge poetry magazine. I found a couple on eBay. I may purchase one. I haven't decided yet, but just, I don't know, just to have it, because I think it's really cool that back in that in the early 1920s, she decided, I'm gonna make my own magazine because I know what I love. And she was a great editor, and she just brought together so many artists and published arguably one of the best poetry magazines in American history. Again, why don't we know her name? Like I said, I'm sure there are people that know her name, but it boggles my mind. Even learning about her dad, he had been kidnapped by bandits. This is a crazy life. Her father was kidnapped by bandits and returned safely for 400 pesos. I mean, this woman had this insane life. She got a gold mine with her second husband, and they were going to mine gold. Unfortunately, she and her daughter got sick, so they had to go back up to Los Angeles to get medical care. And then the Mexican government came in, and they kind of confiscated the gold mines, a lot of the gold mines that were owned by foreigners, Americans, so they lost their gold mine. But just the idea that her and her husband and her family, they were going to go buy a gold mine and mine for gold. I mean, it's just like her whole life was full of adventure. She was a riveter in World War II. She worked for two different aviation companies, Fletcher and Douglas. I mean, she was a Rosie the Riveter. I mean, that is so cool. It means that along with all of the writing she was doing, she decided that she was going to help out in the war and be a riveter. And I know I've just scratched the surface. I did find a site where I found out that there are 7 boxes of correspondence from her to other people that are at the University of Texas, Austin, all having to do with her poetry magazine, Palms. This is why it would be so great to have the show on the road. I would totally go to Texas and just to read the letters. You learn so much about people through letters and how they talk to people. And I feel like it would be a really cool window into who she was. Okay, so what book was I going to read for this episode? When I was on the Science Fiction Encyclopedia, I read about one that I really wanted to read. I was like, this is it. Let me read it to you. It's called The Lost Princess of Yucatan, and it's 2 girls discover in a secret location lost Mayan artifacts, including an intricate object which turns out to be a Rosetta Stone, allowing Mayan to be translated at last. I was like, okay, I'm in. I want to read this book. This sounds so good. Could not find a copy. Not a Kindle copy, not a hard copy. I went on trying to find any copy. Shocker, Los Angeles Public Library didn't have any books. I finally found this one, The Forbidden City. Had no idea what it was about. I ordered it because it was the only one I could find. Yes, if you go on Amazon, you'll find things under Idella Purnell Stone, but it's the anthologies that she edited, and I wanted to read something that she wrote, just herself. So I got The Forbidden City, and as soon as I opened it up, I was, okay, I'm in. I am obsessed with Westerns. If any of you know me, one of my favorite movies of all time is Once Upon a Time in the West. And I open this up, and there is a painting. I'll show you the close-up. And the quote underneath is, "If any murder's to be done, I'm the one who's doing it." We're already getting Western quotes. I'm excited. So, yeah. But then I was looking a little bit closer, and I realized this is a first edition. It's in pretty good shape. a first edition, and I got it for $6. That's a crime to me. I mean, I'm so glad I get to read it, and I'm so glad it was $6 because I was able to buy it. But I mean, not in the RV because I can't have a lot of books here, but in my storage, I have a lot of first editions, and they are a lot more than $6. For someone as prolific as her, as successful as her, she wrote the Bambi novelization. I mean, come on. $6. I don't know why. That just made me sad, but also excited. I wanted to read this. I feel like I waited long enough, and it is time to read The Forbidden City. This book was great. This is a total, complete adventure book. It starts out with the character Ned, who's young, living in Guadalajara. He's an American, and he's just on his way to go visit the doctor, and he's supposed to deliver a message from his mother, and he meets one of the patients there that was supposed to be dead, Jimmy. He was working in a petroleum mine, and he heroically saved a man that was working at the mine, and now he has half a lung. And all he wants from Ned is a cigarette, which I know they knew smoking was bad back then because even the doctor's like, he shouldn't be smoking, he only has half a lung. But I feel like today, he'd be dead. If he even smoked like 2 cigarettes with half a lung, he'd be dead. And he probably wouldn't even really be able to move around that often. But because it is an adventure, you let all of that go and you just have fun and go along with it. There's talk of revolution coming between Ned, Jimmy, and Ned's father. They think, well, one of the best things to do when there is a revolution is to stock up on corn, because people always need corn, and you know, they can make quite a bit of money. Jimmy doesn't want to take their money. He feels like, oh, I don't want a responsibility, but they finally talk him into it, and he's going to take their money. He's going to go across Mexico. He's going to buy them some corn so that they can stock up and sell it and maybe make a bunch of money. So that's how it starts. And the dad very much wants Ned to go with Jimmy because Ned's lived in Guadalajara his entire life and he really hasn't done anything. He's just worked for their store and kind of kept to himself. His dad wants him to have adventure. He wants him to live life and really experience it. And there's a quote where Ned realizes that his dad wants him to go on this journey. Ned gasped and sprang from the counter. "Oh, do you mean that?" he cried. "May I go? Oh, Dad, what an adventure!" Mr. West smiled an odd smile. "It may be an adventure," he admitted. I feel like I did when I first read The Hobbit for some reason, where it was just like an adventure. Like it just, how we love an adventure. This is right at the beginning, so I was really excited, thinking, okay, where is this gonna go? They're gonna be traipsing across Mexico and getting into all sorts of shenanigans. And even though that part I kind of knew was coming, I couldn't wait to get there. She wrote it in a way that made me excited to see what was going to happen on their journey. And of course, to set the stage, a traveling family of gypsies come into town, and one of these psychic ones turns to Ned and she says, "Danger," she croaked startlingly in English. "You will see much danger, but luck circles you. Aye, I see you in a remote place. I see you surrounded by strange and evil men who mean to harm you. It is night. The fire flickers." She broke off. Dun dun dun. And so the adventure begins and they leave. One thing I want to talk about is Purnell's descriptions. This is one thing as one of my weaknesses. I always have to remind myself to describe things because I get very much into the story or the characters or the dialogue, and sometimes I forget to really paint a picture. But oh my gosh, she is so good at painting a picture. I can see everything. One of my favorites was right at the beginning, just as they're leaving town, this is what she says. They struck northwest of Guadalajara, going past the blue cone of Tequila Mountain, which the ascending sun tinged with silver. They rode through pine trees and scrawny scrub oaks, trotting past little adobe huts thatched with tile roofing and haciendas set back from the road, the hacienda houses rising like medieval castles from the meadows. In a cloud of dust, they passed fields of mugway whose blue-gray bayonet leaves stood in threatening ranks. I mean, everything that she said I can see. And this is peppered throughout the entire book. And I love that because she has just as much dialogue and story and fun and adventure and action and everything. But she never forgets to describe where they're at. I remember a part, oh my God, it was so vivid, where he's walking up this side of a inactive volcano, and so there's these black smooth rocks, and it's nighttime, so he can't see very well, and he's just trying to make his way up this path, and then his foot keeps on hitting space. He could easily fall. It's just that feeling of the foot hovering, and you're like, whoa, okay. You know, everyone knows that feeling of like when you're not quite sure and you miss a step, you're expecting ground, but there's nothing but air. That for some reason, that is one of the scenes that sticks out to me the most. But what I loved about this book was the fact that every single time that Jimmy and Ned encountered new people, you expect them to be scary or bad guys, but every single one of them is good. Even El Chivo, who is the bandit, you know, he's the bad guy. He's the guy that tortures people and such. But when they get to know him, he actually ends up saving their butts several times. He loves them. He's like their friends. And you find that anytime he's in a scene or in the book, he doesn't hurt anybody. It makes you wonder how much of that was rumor that he just made people think that he was this dark, scary guy to cause fear and kind of get what he wants in life. We never see him hurt anybody. We never see him kill anybody. We never see any of that. For a bandit, he's a very good person. And then the other part, which actually ends up being what the title of the book is, Ned reaches what's called the Forbidden City. And this is a tiny town tucked within that volcano I was talking about, where there's this beautiful lake, a mirror lake, and caves with a waterfall inside of it. He gets trapped there because the Native Americans that live there, they can't have him leave. They can't have a white guy leave because they're afraid that if he leaves, he'll bring people back to take it from them because most of their land has been taken. And he befriends one of the leaders of this tribe. And it's this beautiful friendship. And even though he's essentially prisoner there, he finds peace there. He finds a joy that even though he wants to go home and he wants to see Jimmy again, he wants to see his dad, he wants to see his mom, he almost comes to terms with the fact that he may be there forever. He makes a good life there because the soil is so rich. He grows a garden, he hunts. Everything there is self-sufficient, and it's sort of this paradise. Now there's this one character, of course, that wants him gone. He doesn't like that Ned has all this attention and that all the tribes people actually really like him and almost revere him in a way, because Ned, when he first came to the tribe, actually used sort of modern medicine and healed the leader that he befriended. Gets to a point where he knows he's in danger because this other tribe member is trying to poison the minds of the tribe against Ned. And so he knows he's in real danger. He ends up sending some disguised messages out, and Jimmy finds it and he hunts him down, and he does help him escape. So of course that's an adventure on its own. And there's a scene with Ned and Jimmy where Ned is talking about, after he's been rescued, how he already misses it. He misses that simplicity. He misses the lake. He misses growing his own food. He misses hunting. He misses all of it. And Jimmy says something very profound. It's one of my favorite quotes. Forbidden City. Ned, don't forget you haven't lost it. You can keep it in your memory, even if you never see it again. Every man that is a man has something hidden away in his mind. It's nothing but a dream now, but it's the dreams we live by, the forbidden cities in our hearts. And I just love that because it's so true. There's always like this place, like for me, and actually my husband, we talked about this after I read the book. For us, it's Venice, Italy. We were lucky enough to be able to go there. And there was something so magical about it. We went on an off season because that was all we could afford. And it was pouring rain. But one of our favorite memories was coming back into the hotel room completely soaked, and then we just wanted to relax and recoup. I was reading His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik, and he was playing his Game Boy at the time, Legend of Zelda, and we were trying to warm up from just being so cold in the rain. And it's just this memory that stands out to me. And whenever I'm feeling down or blue or whatever, I always go back to that place because I felt such contentment in that moment. That's exactly how I felt when I read that in the book, because I think that's what she was trying to say. There's always a place, a memory, something that we always keep to ourselves that we can recall anytime we want. And it brings us back to that feeling and that emotion that we felt. She's just so good. I mean, I can't emphasize how great of a writer she is. Eventually, which is funny considering her real life, they end up owning a gold mine and they live happily ever after. There's a little hiccup, but I don't want to tell you about that with Jimmy, but she implies at the end that Jimmy's going to be just fine, and it's great. Jimmy with 9 lives. And I really didn't know what to expect when I got this book. All I knew was it was the only book I could get a hold of. I know this sounds like a broken record from episode to episode, but it's just sad to me that she was so successful. I mean, successful in her time, and she's just been lost and forgotten. And how many others have been like that? I just feel really lucky that I was able, that her name called out to me, wanted to know more about her and wanted to read one of her books. And so now I have this, a first edition. That's right, I have a first edition. I'm going to put it with my other first editions because I loved it. I loved it. It was just exactly what I needed. I needed something lighthearted. I needed something that wasn't heavy, and that's exactly what this was. It was just a straight up 1930s adventure with all the wonderful lingo that you that you know from when you watch old 30s movies and they have that slang and that talk. It's all in here. It was so wonderful. I hope you guys loved learning about Idella Purnell Stone as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.